So if he hides in Ghana, he never travels to the US again. Can he just escape the punishment that way and not pay the money?
Oh, how is it that Honorable Kennedy Agyapong is a Ghanaian, Anas Aremeyaw Anas, the ace investigative journalist, is Ghanaian, but both men are in a court in the US battling a legal issue? In fact, when I saw this, one thing that came into my mind was that could this be a portrayal of the neo-colonialist mindset that we still have, that we have courts in Ghana, but then we seek to sort of overturn rulings that are done in Ghana in a US court? So to help me understand this, I have an astute lawyer in the person of Godwin Selasi Dakpo, Esquire. So Godwin, give us a brief background. What actually happened between Honorable Kennedy Agyapong and then Anas Aremeyaw Anas before we get into why they are even in the US?
Okay, so I mean, this is a case of defamation that was filed against Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, in the courts in the United States of America. Indeed, if you recall, Anas has always had some issues with how Kennedy has publicly accused him of various issues, which he took the view that those words he used to describe him and spoke harshly about him were offensive and defamatory. And I mean, the law permits that when you think that someone said something which words are not true, and when they are heard by some reasonable persons, it will reduce your reputation, your brand, and your standard before them. Then you could say that I defame you. So, and that was the view that no, the things he said by calling him, in radio stations, TV interviews, that he's a criminal, he's evil, he's a convicted criminal, and all of that were not true, and there are no factual basis for them. But he has gone ahead to make these things, and those things he has published to the media or in the media affected his personality, affected the kind of work he does. The reputation he has in the public space is affected, and therefore he's defamed. And he went to the Ghanaian court seeking remedy in form of compensation. Of course, he wanted a 25 million Ghana cedis for compensation for what, the statement sort of defamed him.
Wow.
I mean, the High Court obviously disagree with him that the statements were not defamatory of his character, or he has not proved his claim. So the court refused to grant him the orders of defamation, or rather dismissed the case and awarded a cost of 50,000 against him in favor of Kennedy Agyapong. But the interesting thing is that there are some dimensions to the whole publication of the information. Some were published in Ghana, some were equally published in the United States of America. And because Kennedy Agyapong is a citizen of the US,
so this defamatory
statements,
he's a citizen of the US.
Yes. Ghanaian, you can be a citizen in two countries, your Ghana citizenship as well as some other country. And my information, of course, we've read, he's a citizen of the US as well. So he's subjected to the laws of the United States of America, just like any other of the US is.
Okay. So for Anas to also be able to sue in the US, does it mean that he's also a citizen in the US?
No, he need not be a citizen of the US, but the person who has offended you or who has committed a tort against you must be resident within a particular jurisdiction where the law under which you are seeking to seek damage against him applies to him. So the fact is that Kennedy made some of these statements, of course, on a platform that is, hosted by one self-acclaimed social media commentator, or content creator of a sort. Well, they said Kennedy was in the US, in his apartment in the US. So, he was a citizen in the US, come stay in the US, and while in the US soil, he has made certain statements which were defamatory against a person who was not in the US. And the persons who heard these statements were largely persons who are citizens of Ghana in the US, or former citizens who are still in the US. And Anas has it that he has a big reputation in the US for the work he does. In fact, the United States former President Barack Obama recognized his work. Kofi Annan, the United States General Secretary, recognized his work. So the US and international community has a lot of respect for the work he does. So if you go on air and to the US audience,
Okay.
talking about him that he's a criminal, he's evil, he's a convicted criminal, and all of that. I mean, he will take the view that they will defame him, and they will indeed reduce his standard before
Okay.
the eyes of those people. So he can go to the US where it was made and sue him there for compensation. And he did, file
Interesting.
for defamation against him there.
Okay. Okay. So now there are two judgments. One was done in Ghana, which went against Anas Aremeyaw Anas.
That's true.
And the one in the US has gone in his favor. So how does that play out? Because these are two rulings that are against each other. So does it mean one has overturned the other or in a different jurisdiction, or how does that play out?
Yeah, so even though the parties are the same, the laws are different. Now, the one given in Ghana only has application within the jurisdiction of Ghana. I mean, the 16 regions of Ghana, that's where it applies, and that ends it. Whatever damage Anas was alleging that he has sustained was focusing in the damage he has in Ghana as a Ghanaian. Then the one in the US, even though it's still against Kennedy, he's talking about the damage sustained in the US. And under the US
wow. Okay.
if you have sustained damages under the US law by US citizen in the soil of the US, you can sue in the US to also get a claim. So they are two and distinct separate things, even though they relate to defamation.
Okay.
And one thing you also realize is that in the Ghana case, only one high court judge sat and hear the parties take all the evidence and reach a judgment. But in the US, it was a jury trial. Jury trial means that 8 persons are put together as a panel. They hear you, they are ordinary persons in society. They hear you, take your evidence, and when they are convinced that you have made a case for what you want, they give you an award. And in fact, Anas actually was claiming for a number of things. He wanted 5 million as compensation for presumed damages to him. 5 million USD.
Okay.
He also wanted 10 million USD as special damages for still the defamatory statement. And then he also wanted another 5 million US dollars for actual damages that he has, that has occasioned the defamatory statement. And more to it, he also wanted 10 million US dollars for punitive damage. In other words, punish him for this conduct with 10 million US dollars.
Wow.
So in all, he wanted about—
The man can quote figures.
Yes. But that is how it is. When you are, filing defamation suit, we cannot adequately compensate for reputation. It cannot be. So you quote big figures, I mean, to raise your standard as high as possible. So in all, he was claiming 30 million US dollars.
Wow.
As damages against—
even bigger than what we saw.
Yes, in Ghana. So it's more like Ghana 25 million, but US 30 million USD. And I mean, the jury thought that 80 million was proper. So I mean, they are
and I understand it was a unanimous decision.
Yeah, so it means all the 8 jury panel members agree that he has defamed.
That's incredible.
Yes, and then the defamation should be compensated, and 80 million was okay to compensate and ask for the worst.
Okay, so now that Kennedy is a citizen of 2 countries, can he just decide not to travel to the US again and escape whatever punishment there is waiting for him there?
No. I mean, once you are citizen, you are citizen. Even the truth of the matter is that as at the date of the judgment, what was his status? He was a citizen. So the judgment will take effect from that date, not when he does any subsequent action to sort of denounce citizenship of US.
Yeah, okay, no. What I'm saying is that, so can he just come and hide in Ghana? Because the US jurisdiction doesn't cover Ghana territory. So if he hides in Ghana, he never travels to the US again. Can he just escape the punishment that way and not pay the money?
Oh, unfortunately, he cannot, because I mean, we live in a community as nations, and there are international conventions that regulate how you can, for example, get a judgment against someone in the US, but he stays, the person stays in Ghana, but judgment was obtained, just like Ken. He's a Ghanaian. He can come back to Ghana. He stays in Ghana, but he had a judgment against him from the US. You can actually enforce that US judgment in Ghanaian court against him in Ghana.
Okay.
So you will file an application in this court in Ghana, and the Ghanaian court will enter the judgment, I mean, after they approved the application, as if it's a judgment obtained in Ghana, then they will force it against you as if it was originally obtained in Ghana, just like any other judgment of the court in Ghana.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Incredible. Incredible. All right. I think that answers my question. I hope
Yes.
I hope all the viewers also have benefited a lot, and I know they have. Yeah. So all right. That's it for me. Any final words before we go?
I mean, maybe a word of caution though to everyone. The fact that 2 citizens have gone abroad to fight out the legal battle and 1 person has won does not mean that when you also have any legal battle against someone who you have gone to court in Ghana, you can still go outside and do it. You can only do so when you are sure that that person is a citizen of the other country. And the facts that constitute a defamation to you were actually committed in the soil of that country. And you have the basis in law to prove that they were defamatory. Then you can also go to that country and then file a suit. I mean, the age of technology makes it easy for information to be published across the jurisdiction of a country. So you can go beyond the jurisdiction of Ghana and affect, some audience you may have in US, in Canada. Once the person who published it, the Canadian or a US citizen, you can equally, have a claim against the person in that other country.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Wow, you make me feel like studying law.
You may want to. You may want
to. Yeah, it's a great pleasure. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you.
And
I will link his channel in the description, so you can just go there and see his work. He's doing some amazing work there. I'll link it so you can go there and check it out. All right, so see you again some other time. Stay blessed.